Welcome, everyone from far and wide. It's so great to have you. Today, we'll explore how pleasure and healing are intrinsically connected. Most of us are here because we're on our own trauma healing journey or we support others on theirs. Many of us read The Body Keeps the Score by our founder, Dr. Bessel van der Kolk. In it, we learn that body-based approaches are very effective for working through psychological trauma. Since trauma impacts our nervous systems, including the nervous system in the healing process is critical. And that's what somatic treatments do. Bessel van der Kolk emphasizes the importance of using a combination of therapies because no single approach is typically sufficient on its own. Exploring various therapies at different points in the healing process can be especially helpful. That's why the Trauma Research Foundation created this program, Integrate Mind Body Practice for Working Through Trauma, and why we are so passionate about bringing it to you. Our goal is to share a diverse range of body-based therapies with as many people as possible for free. We want to spotlight the kinds of options that are available so that you can find the ones that are right for you. We want you to have hope that there are treatments that can help. Another goal of Integrate is to give us the chance to not just talk about the approaches, but to embody them ourselves by practicing together. That's what we'll do today, embody this work. And we hope you walk away with a tool you can use or share right away. If you're watching us on YouTube or other social media platforms, please help spread the word about this program by subscribing to TRF and sharing our posts. It tells the platforms that this content is valuable, then they'll show it to more people. I'm Mary Frangie. I produce Integrate, and I'm joined by the TRF team working behind the scenes, Connor McCann and Liz Coda. Today, we'll practice trauma-informed presence and disable the chat during certain portions of the session. This supports connecting to ourselves by minimizing distractions and impulsive reactions. We'll also have time for a very short Q&A at the end of the session. But right now, I'm so thrilled to introduce you to Kai Cheng Thom and her session, When the Body Says Yes, Embodied Pleasure and Trauma Healing. This will explore frameworks and practices that unlock the potential of pleasure and joy for trauma treatment. Kai Cheng Thom is a qualified mediator, certified professional Jungian life coach, certified somatic sex educator, and process facilitator, whose work focuses on the intersections of trauma healing, transformative justice, and social change. A noted theorist and practitioner in conflict resolution, Kai Cheng has made significant contributions through her writing and teaching to the integration and application of conflict transformation, crisis intervention, and body-based trauma healing methods in an activist context. Kai Cheng maintains a private practice as a one-on-one somatic coach, consultant, and group facilitator. She draws from extensive professional training in a wide variety of healing and wellness disciplines, including politicized somatics through Strozzi and generative somatics lineages, depth psychology, process work, somatic sex education, clinical hypnotherapy, yoga nidra, and Thai massage. She has trained hundreds of embodiment and wellness professionals as adjunct faculty with the Institute for Study of Somatic Sex Education and as a senior teacher at the Embodied Lab. Oh, my goodness, Kai Cheng, thank you so much for being here. Please take it away.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much for that really generous introduction, Mary. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time out of your day to be here or to sign up for the recording. I am so delighted and excited to get to spend an hour with you all. My name is Kai Cheng, as you heard. That's all my first name. Tom is the last name. And I'm calling in from my home in Toronto, also called Toronto or Tugorondo, in Treaty 13 territory, which is also part of the Dish with One Spoon Wampum, which is an ancient agreement between the Haudenosaunee, the Huron-Wendat, and the Anishinaabe peoples that the land colonially known as the Great Lakes region is meant to be stewarded in the spirit of collaboration and nonviolence for generations to come. In the circles that I am in, we do land acknowledgement as one very small step towards the practice of acknowledging and entering into repairing and restoring the impact of the violence of colonization, knowing that this is the work of many generations. It's also really important, I know, to frame that land acknowledgement doesn't actually necessarily change the situations that we are living in, but rather it is important to link our embodied practice to that acknowledgement. And so, as I'm about to move us into a conversation about trauma healing and pleasure, I invite you to consider, to be curious, to be in the question, what does pleasure have to do with justice? So, that said, let me back up a little bit. I am a trauma healing practitioner and a group facilitator, and I believe that pleasure is an essential aspect of trauma healing. I also believe that pleasure is a human right. And when I say that, maybe there's a response that comes up in your body. Maybe it's like a yeah, definitely. Or maybe it's like I don't know about that. Or maybe it's like a no, no, no. I don't like that at all. Um, Maybe it's some combination of all the above. And I really invite you just to notice, welcome, and be with the wisdom of your body's yes, no, maybe, I don't know, and I'll try that on, and maybe I'll change my mind. This is really crucial. In the field of somatic sex education and sexological body work, we call that embodied yes, no, maybe, I don't know, I changed my mind, empowered choice and voice. It's a part of consent, in other words. And to me, it is really impossible to experience pleasure in a healing, right relationship way. I actually think it's hard to do trauma healing in a healing way, like in a good and right relationship way, without empowered choice and voice. So let's ground in that first principle. You get to say yes, no, maybe. You get to try things on and change your mind. Knowing that, I'm about to invite you into a somatic practice now. This is a very simple somatic practice, but it can be surprisingly evocative. So my invitation is to close the chat for now so that we can practice, what did you call it, Mary? Um, Presence, trauma-informed presence. And try on this practice if you would like. And if you wouldn't like, maybe just observe and see how it goes. So I invite us to begin with a wiggle squiggle, squirm or stretch. Really, this is an invitation to any kind of movement that brings body sensation online. Very gentle, very experimental. Mm, just noticing, remembering that we have bodies, that we are in bodies, that we are bodies. And there are many, many different ways to be in relationship with this miraculous thing that is our soma, our embodied self, the living body in its wholeness. Saying hello to our embodied selves in their wholeness. Mm, mhm. And then I invite you to take a moment to find a position, posture, or shape that is comfortable. As comfortable as you can possibly be in this moment. So that might mean stretching and leaning back. I'm leaning back against the really cushy but firm back of my seat right now. It might mean leaning forward and putting your head on your desk or a table. It might mean bringing some pillows or blankets into the space. It might mean lying down. Whatever the case is for you, I invite you to practice the empowered choosing of sensing through your body, noticing how you could be comfortable, and then making that choice, as I'm doing little by little, even now. Noticing if there are any changes in your breathing as you settle in, settle down. And my invitation is to get kind of fussy here. Like, don't don't settle for. Settle in, settle down, but don't settle for. Like, see if there's any way you could be 1 or 2% even more comfortable than you are now. Like I'm putting this scarf on because it's Canada and I'm a little chilly. We don't have to rush. Hmm. Hmm. Noticing what happens when you take that time to be a little extra fussy, to look for the 1% or 2% more comfortable. Maybe there's a 5% or a 10% more comfortable. How cool could that be? And noticing as well any challenges that come up around this. Is there any resistance in your body to taking the time for comfort? Any spin in the thinking brain around, but what's the point of this? Or why are we doing this? Or am I doing it right? Anything like that. Any emotion as you take this time to get really comfortable. Any noticing of, well, it's kind of hard to get comfortable. Maybe there's an ache or a pain or a twinge. Maybe there's like a memory, narrative, or embodied that starts to come up. And just remember, you get to choose in this practice. So if at any point you're like, nope, I'm not into this, then the purpose actually is to do what's right for you. Is there any sadness, any grief, any guilt, any sense of why should I get to be comfortable when all those other people out there are suffering? I just invite us to welcome any challenges or difficulty in with love, because comfort doesn't have to be an all or nothing thing. Ah. Just noticing what happens when you make space to look for the 1% or 2% more comfortable, and also acknowledge what is uncomfortable. Let's take, oh, just a handful of breaths more here. Really sensing in, noticing where the body is saying yes. Yes to lying down. Yes to closed or open eyes. Yes to relieving joints of the weight of carrying us for a little bit. Following that yes. Noticing what happens when your body says yes. I'm going to be silent for the next 3 of my breath. Ah. And now, if you're open to it, you might wiggle your fingers or toes very gently, very slowly. There is no need to rush, no need to hurry up, no need to clean up, no need to do it right. The invitation is to slowly, gently, still savoring any comfort that you were able to find, And oh, so lovingly, bring yourself back to present moment, present time, maybe glancing around the space that you're in, maybe noticing anything in the environment around you that you like or that you love. Outside my window, there are trees that have turned gold and orange and red. And the sun is that kind of frosty golden color that the Canadian autumn winter can bring. And I love that. Maybe there's something that you like or love that you can savor in this transition. Ah, okay. Hello, hi. If you want to stay in your comfortable, relaxed, supportive shape, then go ahead and do that. Ah, I would love to invite us to open up the chat, and just invite folks to share. What are you noticing? What are you noticing from that practice? Ah, calm, relaxed, calm, at peace, refreshed. I almost fell asleep. I am here with you. My body was so grateful. Serenity, sighing in relief, smile, warmth, good tingles. Surprised by how hard it was for me to feel comfortable, but I feel peace now. Tension release. I grabbed a giant scarf. Permission and encouragement helped. Calm, centered. It's hard to tell myself yes to let myself relax, but I'm willing to keep trying. Okay. Less slower breathing. Magic. I witness how much society doesn't want us to embrace shapes that make me comfortable. Frustration over stopping. Yeah, totally. I invite us to continue in any way you might like to continue while listening. And I just want to kind of take a moment to acknowledge there's two big categories of themes in the share. One is, oh, I liked it. It was magical. And one is, I noticed it was kind of hard. And I would just love to invite anyone else who had that sensation of it's kind of hard, maybe just to note that in the chat or to send an emoji or a heart reaction through. Maybe let us know like what was hard about that? What was hard about finding comfort? Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of hearts, a laughing but crying at the same time emoji. Yeah, being is hard, doing is easier. Not my normal. It's hard to stop. Guilt and peace at the same time. Noticed I was hungry, working on that now. Yeah, please feel free to eat if that would help. Tension. It was hard till the speaker gave permission. It felt challenging, vulnerable. What if I can't pay attention? Shame. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so I just want to take a moment here and recognize this theme is really, really common when we start to work with comfort, which is the gateway to pleasure, really, um, that it's hard. And so I just want to send a big encouragement into the room and tell you it's okay if it's hard to find comfort. It makes sense that it's hard to find comfort. We live in a world that makes it hard to find pleasure. And I want to tell you, pleasure and comfort are a human right. You have the right to pleasure. And if folks are open to it and you'd like to do this, maybe share into the chat some encouragement for all the other 637 people in this room and all the other people registered for this webinar. Maybe let them know in the chat, pleasure is a human right. You deserve to feel pleasure. Your pleasure is good. If you feel like that's true, maybe share that in the chat. You are allowed. You have permission. You're not working to earn pleasure or comfort. You don't have to be embarrassed about your pleasure. Give yourself permission. Pleasure is positive energy and is healing. I believe pleasure is good, though I don't believe it's the highest aim. It doesn't have to be. It is a human right. It is okay to have pleasure. Pleasure is not only related to sex pleasures, absolutely. You deserve to feel pleasure. Pleasure is good. Pleasure comes when we have our needs met. I'm learning too. Pleasure is ours to have. Okay, so thank you so much. And now let's just kind of take a moment and take it in. Like, if you wrote that in the chat or you're seeing it, it's like, yeah, that's you. That means you. You deserve to have pleasure. Maybe just notice. Take it in. We're conspiring around this. Conspiring meaning like with, spire, like breathe, like breathing together toward a world where we all are allowed to feel good without shame. So let's close and pause the chat for now. Thank you so much. There will be a couple more opportunities for this kind of experiential back and forth. If you missed some parts of this, no worries. Please stay on with us and the replay will fill in any gaps. So that was our experiential introduction to working somatically with pleasure. For those who are wondering, how do I replicate that? It is recorded, but the cues were find a comfortable position or shape, settle in, settle down, don't settle for, get fussy. Bring in supports, scarves, blankets, pillows. Try a few things out. You can stop at any time. Notice what happens when your body says yes. You can cue yourself through that. You might try cueing a client through it. Remember, if you cue clients through it or groups, it can be surprisingly evocative. People can start to cry because this might be the first time in the day, in the week, in the year, in a lifetime that another body has given somatic permission to their body to settle in, to be comfortable. This might be the first time in a lifetime that they have heard someone tell them, you deserve to feel comfort. It's a big deal. Yeah. So this practice comes to me through the lineage of somatic sex education and sexological body work. We do not only have to use these practices for any kind of sex or erotic related purposes. We can use them for kind of anything, really. For those who are more interested in somatic sex education and sexological bodywork, I actually recommend a Netflix documentary called Goop, Sex, and Love, which features sexological body workers prominently. Um, Somatic sex education is the somatics of pleasure, which is really deeply intertwined with the somatics of trauma healing. Because trauma, suffering, pain, overwhelm, all that happened that was not supposed to, and all that didn't happen that should have, that's really connected to what we are longing for, what we yearn for, what we desire. And the very first practice that we tend to teach as a part of reclaiming our embodied pleasure, which is intertwined with healing embodied pain or trauma, is this thing we call the sacred pause. I learned it from my teacher, Kathin Jesse, and there are many teachers teaching this practice in the world now. The sacred pause is about this thing, empowered choice and voice, which is different from the conception of consent that consent only means no, although the no is also sacred and really important. Getting to say no to what we don't want is a huge part of trauma healing. There is another half to that that we often miss in the clinical realm, and that is we also should get to say yes to what we do want. I'll say it again. We should get to say no to what we do not want. We should get to say yes to what we do want, which is different from taking what we want non consensually. It is different from being selfish or being harmful. Saying yes to what we do want is acknowledging that we are allowed to want things. And sometimes we are even allowed to have them. Really, really key principle. So the sacred pause is, again, a deceptively simple practice. It is about taking the time to slow down in the midst of whatever is going on in our body, around our body, between our bodies. To stop, to breathe, to turn our attention inward and notice, are we feeling a yes, a no, or a maybe? And it might be more than one of those at the same time. We get to know the internal sense of yes, no, or maybe, and then we make a decision based on empowered choice and voice. Will we move ahead and say, yes, I want to do what's happening right now? Will we stop and say, no, I don't think I do want to do what we're doing right now? Maybe later, maybe next time, maybe with someone else, maybe if the conditions are different. No, in general, no, completely, whatever the stop is. Or will we do something else? Will we find a creative option that is neither yes nor no? We can use the sacred pause, train the sacred pause, teach the sacred pause in almost any interaction in our lives. Like if a teacher on a webinar is saying, settle in, settle down, get comfortable, you might take the sacred pause and say, do I want this? Do I like this? And you get to choose. If we are in a therapeutic situation and offering an intervention to a client, we might invite them to take a sacred pause and check. Are they a yes, no, maybe? If we are on a date and someone offers to buy us ice cream, I don't know, we can use the sacred pause and check. And of course, all the many more variations of complex interaction that can happen, we can teach the sacred pause. Power dynamics, job situations, the workplace make empowered choice more difficult. Of course. And what we are doing with the sacred pause is we are finding in our bodies whatever space there is for choice. The 1%, the 2%. The question, what would make this better for me, for the relationship? That ability to notice where the body is saying yes and to follow it involves the tracking of pleasure. It involves us being able to know what is it that we long for and what is it that we don't. There is in the trauma healing field a delightful expansion of commonly held knowledge about the nervous system. The nervous system being that literal physiological system in the body that is responsible for increasing or decreasing various types of organ function at any given time. I know that many of you here, not all necessarily, but many, will be familiar with the idea of the window of capacity, also called the window of tolerance, and the notion that when the body detects threat or is experiencing danger, then the nervous system will shift us into a survival state. The survival states can look like a freeze. I'm not doing anything. I'm staying still. I'm not provoking any danger. I'm trying to get through this. I'm bracing myself. It can look like a fight. I'm going to fight my way through this threat. I'm going to make myself big and strong and scary to others. I might break a relationship in order to get to safety. It might look like a flight. I'm getting out of here so I can be safe. It might also look like a fawn or a collapse or a submit, pleasing and appeasing in order to preserve relationship and thus preserve safety. And because of this nervous system function, which is wise and important in its way, I think that sometimes nervous system arousal, which is that process of like the nervous system charging up and moving us into different states, can get a bad rap. But here's the thing. Nervous system states are also essential for pleasure and for the transformation out of the state of numbness, the state of shutdown, the state of pushing away into the state of feeling alive, experiencing aliveness. So, what you were looking at on the graph just now, and I'll put it back up momentarily, don't worry, is a breakdown. But nervous system arousal can look like the body getting excited. And that excitement, when we have lived in a trauma state, in a traumatogenic world, meaning a world that is very traumatizing, that body getting excited feeling is very often associated with I'm running away, I'm in a conflict, I'm in the fight or flight, I'm in a freeze, terrified state. And so it's like, oh, we don't want to be there. Let's regulate the nervous system so that we can get out of that and be in a Zen state of calm. And I love a Zen state of calm. But guess what? The body becoming aroused through the nervous system, getting excited, having increased heart rate, having increased breath, having increased blood circulation, feeling the flush on our skin, is also the state of feeling excited about something. Sometimes we call this the awake and take state, as opposed to fight or flight. It's awake and take, like, oh, I'm awake and this is delightful, and I'm taking it in outside my window. There is sunlight and gorgeous leaves, and I'm here for it. I want to roll around in those leaves and feel the crunch. I want to go outside to my favorite coffee shop and say hi to that barista who's always so friendly to me. And I want to smile at my neighbors. I want to give people hugs. Awake and take, like taking in. I'm taking it in. It's delicious. And I want to reach out and connect. That's awake and take. And to get there, we have to be in nervous system arousal. We have to be experiencing that pickup. We can do that in lots of ways. It doesn't have to be about the fall. It was very Canadian of me. We could go dancing for it. We could um, do contact improv. Some people are shuddering. They would never go to contact improv. Okay. We could host the dinner party. We can cultivate on purpose, awake and take. And guess what? It's not rocket science. The awake and take state of pleasure is embedded in the cultural traditions of every culture on this planet. We just have to find them, the ones that work for us, and to make permission for them. A part of trauma healing is finding out how to cultivate at the right speed, at the right time, with the empowered choice and voice, how to be in awake and take, and to be awake, awaking and taking with others. Then there is also the nervous system state of collapse. Frozen, but frozen more like numb. Frozen like, oh, we're having a fight with the teenager, and a teenager puts their head on the desk and says, whatever, whatever. That's kind of like a frozen state, a collapsed state, a numb state. And very often, when we live in the traumatogenic world, we tend to associate the nervous system slowdown with that numbness, maybe depressive, maybe detached from life. And so we can want to try to avoid the numb state. There can be a sense of, oh, I've got to regulate out of it. So I reach my Zen state of calm where I'm here and present, but not too excited. And I love a Zen state of calm. And the numb state or the collapsed state can really save our lives. But there is another aspect to the nervous system slowdown or a parasympathetic dominant nervous system state, which is that when we cultivate the parasympathetic dominant nervous system state, the slow down nervous system state, in a trauma healing way, it's like, ooh, blissful. Ooh, I can let go. Ooh, I can slow down. I can relax. I can drop in. I can really be here. I can melt into the universe. I can get a massage or have the spa treatment. I can, after running around and playing with my kids or my pets, my beloved animal friends, I can be like, relaxing. I can read my book and really be there for the story. That's the relaxed state of pleasure. So the question is, how do we do that? How do we get from the nervous system arousal states that are associated with survival and getting through, pleasing and appeasing, to the pleasureful, healing nervous system states? Well, if I bring up this graph again, um, you will see that the more pickup there is, the more there is of that racing heart, fast breath. That is usually a sign that we're going more into the sympathetic nervous system state. And the more of that slowdown there is, it's a sign we're getting into a parasympathetic dominant nervous system state. And the trauma survival states, fight or flight, freeze and appease, are threat management states on the threat management side of a spectrum that goes from threat management to pleasure. And when we get to the pleasure side of the spectrum, we are more in this excited, ecstatic, awake and take, or rest and digest. How do we get there? It is about the cultivation of a safe enough space for empowered choice and voice, and also positive, attuned, relational connection. Positive, attuned, relational connection. It means that we are making the space for our body to enter those nervous system states and still be in loving relationship with the other, loving relationship with ourselves, loving relationship with the other, and loving relationship with ourselves. And when those two factors, loving relationship with ourselves and with others, is present, that is what tends to allow the nervous system to experience high levels or higher than usual levels of arousal in the state of pleasure rather than the state of threat management. And if we have lived through a great deal of complex or developmental or relational trauma, sometimes it can be really hard to tell the difference. Just going to take a moment there to kind of acknowledge that this is probably a truth for quite a few of us on the call. It can be hard for us to know the difference between a heightened nervous system state that is pleasurable and a heightened nervous system state that is about threat management, that is dangerous. We fear that as our body moves towards that state of heightened arousal, whether it's blissful or excited, that we might get harmed, that we might be hurt, or horror of horrors, that we might harm others. And there's grief to do there in the unwinding of pleasure has been associated with pain, in the unwinding of our bodies can get really confused about the arousal that is pleasurable and the arousal that is about survival. This is why the practices are deceptively simple. Settle in, get comfortable. Okay, brings up a lot. I'm going to invite us into another practice now, just for a couple minutes, and I'm going to invite us to remember empower choice and voice. You can do this or not. You can try it on and change your mind. It's up to you. Okay, so let's start with like a sacred pause. I've just said a lot of things. Maybe they were evocative. Maybe they were boring. It's okay. Check in with yourself. And in a moment, I'm going to invite us into a self touch practice. So really using the elbow to the fingertips. In a moment, don't do it yet. I'm going to invite you to use your free hand to offer yourself some self-touch between the elbow and the fingertips. Self-touch that is pleasurable. This might be edgy, so don't do it if you don't want to. But if you'd like to try, let's just give it a shot. So I'm going to invite us to put the hand, the arm that is receiving touch on a supportive platform or support of some kind. So I'm putting some books here so I don't have to hold it up. Effort makes it more difficult to receive pleasure sometimes. So I'm propping up my receiving arm, and then I'm using my other hand and I'm just offering some gentle massage to the forearm, to the fingers. And you're probably, if you're not sure how to do this, like copying me, which is great and fine. I'm going to show you a couple options. So another kind of touch you could do is like touch like water, flowing, caressing. You could also switch to fingertips, like, ooh, raindrops, raindrop touch. You could flip your arm over, explore the palm of the hand. You could squeeze the fingertips. The invitation is to get creative. Don't, you don't have to do what I'm doing. The invitation is to follow your body's yes. Just noticing how contact with yourself might be nice, might be pleasurable. And if it's not, don't do it. If you try something and you thought it could be good and it turned out not, don't keep doing it. Choosing is more important than doing. Empowered choice and voice are what make pleasure possible. Settle into the practice. Don't settle for the practice. Hmm. Okay. Let's bring that to a close. Take the sacred pause. Huh. How was that for us? How was that for me? And then if you're open to it, sharing in the chat, let's open the chat. What did you notice? What did you notice through that practice? It was weird. Yes, it's weird. Wonderful and comforting. Moving. I teared up. Wonderful. Made me think of my mum. I enjoyed it. Human touch is so wonderful. Nervous at first, then comfort. My jaw relaxed. I need lotion on my hands. A release of pressure. Want more. I like to fidget. Lots of temperatures. Comfort and pleasure. Just feeling the touch resting on my arm. Deeper connection. Would rather just sit and relax. Good noticing what we'd rather do. Very good. I need to release my muscle tension. Stroking arm made me anxious. Holding was fine. Felt like a welcome home. Beautiful, beautiful. Good job, everyone. So as you can see, there's power here. And there's power in noticing you didn't like it. And there's power in noticing if you did. And there were many, many shares that were like, it was kind of scary at first. And then something opened up and it was beautiful. And this is what it is like working with pleasure for trauma healing. And in the sexological bodywork, somatic sex education space, we might say healing and holing space, meaning we become whole through pursuing practices like this as well as others. There is discomfort, there is comfort, there is pleasure, and there is grief, and they are often woven together. And so the invitation is to be in a very choiceful dance, to find what is right for us. And it is just as good to try a practice and say, nope, not for me, as it is to say, I love this practice, I'm going to do it all the time. And it is also really good to be like, I didn't like it like this, but it made me think of something else that I would like more. because that is empowered choice. And getting to practice empowered choice in relationship with others is a sign that we are on the path to trauma healing and also reclaiming a more just world. Let's pause the chat for now, and I'm going to show one more graphic. One more? Two more. And one more practice, and then we're going to have a tiny amount of time for questions. I knew I was going to run over, but we will do our best. Okay, so pleasure is an edgy thing. Sometimes even the word pleasure can make us feel a bit nervous and scared. I know that still, when I present to large groups, I get a little hit of shame when I say the word pleasure. So, like, even right now, I'm a little bit like, is this okay? Am I allowed to talk about this? It is because we live in a world that shames pleasure. Um, and also, pleasure is legitimately an edgy thing. Um, There are many ways to experience pleasure that can take us further away from the experience of being alive, this experience that we want. Um, like the kind of pleasure that is a risk that we didn't really want to take, like the kind of pleasure that is not connecting us to others, but is rather making others uncomfortable or pushing others away from us. There are lots of ways to do that. And so I just want to offer discernment here is key. There is a spectrum of pleasure experience. Um, we can use pleasure to self soothe as a resource on the road to um, doing challenging things. There's also pleasure as a distraction, which is like, oh, just not going to pay attention to what's in front of me, which maybe we want that, maybe we don't. There is pleasure as like joyful reconnection. Like I went out dancing and I had a great time and I met fabulous people and I remembered that I am a dancing queen, you know? And then there's pleasure that can be like wanting without liking. Like if I don't go dancing and I don't connect with someone, then I feel really bad about myself. And so I have to go dancing even if I'm tired and maybe I should really be doing these other things. But if I don't go, then I'll feel bad about myself. You see, it's the same activity, but experienced in a slightly different way. There is pleasure as the ecstatic expansion of the self. I go out and experience the fall leaves, and it's like, whoa, I'm in touch with the divine. And then there's pleasure as like the loss of self. I go out into the world and it's like, oh, I spiritually bypass. Everything is great, and I'm not going to pay attention to any other painful thing in my life or anyone else's problems. The same activity, different parts of the pleasure experience spectrum. So the discernment is this embodied pleasure experience bringing me closer to myself? Is it bringing me into right relationship with others? Or is it taking me further away from that? And the sacred pause can help us to notice which one it is. Lastly, I just wanted to show you this little model I have made called the healing spiral. It is based on Joseph Campbell's depth psychological model, the hero's journey, which I know many of you will have heard of. The healing spiral is a reminder that when we start to reclaim our empowered choice and voice, which is the beginning of a trauma healing process, we might call this phase one of Judith Herman's three-phase trauma healing process, we start to often use pleasurable experience for stabilization, to resource ourselves. This is similar to Peter Levine's somatic experiencing concept of the blue vortex or the counter vortex, the vortex that pulls us out of the trauma vortex. And as we start to get a little more confident with practicing our empowered choice and voice and leaning into pleasurable experience, we often start to make some self-discoveries. Like we start to do new things. We start to expand our range. We start to invite different interactions with other human beings into our lives. And then very often there is a tip or a descent into the under, so to speak. When we expand our range, grief tends to arise. Embodied memory tends to arise. Memory of the pleasure that wasn't there that we longed for. memory of the pleasure others took that hurt us, memory of the pleasure that we were denied, that we were punished for, that we were shamed about, pleasure that we were told was for other people who were better than us, all of that. And in that experience in the underworld, that place of the memories are coming back and the fear of the future is coming back, the heroic reclamation is being able to be with the nature of life, which is that all organisms expand and contract, and that pleasure brings us close to life, which is also closer to pain, and then away from it. Pleasure is a part of the rhythm of being alive, not the only part of being alive, part of the rhythm of being alive. And the embodied self that we find in the pleasurable experience is very often the twin to the embodied self that we find in the painful experience. And the ability to travel through the spiral into pain and back into pleasure is what allows us to grow, to heal, and to offer our medicine to the others. Because I don't know about you, but when I see a person who is truly in their dignity and in their pleasure in a good way, it makes me feel like that's possible for me. It also makes me scared because I'm like, could I ever be like that? It is both. We offer the medicine to others through really tapping into what it's like to be alive. So that is the healing spiral. And I think instead of bringing us into a third practice, because it was going to be a bit more of the same, I'm going to pause for questions and give you a little home play to take away. The home play is um, write a paragraph about a pleasurable experience you would like to have. It does not need to be like the biggest, wildest pleasurable experience in the world. It might be, I'd like to lie on the sofa and read a book for an uninterrupted 30 minutes. Just write it down. And then think about, imagine the embodied experience of what it might be like to give yourself that experience. See what happens inside of you, and then take notes. Is it uniformly good? Is it kind of scary? Is it good and bad at the same time? And then, if that moment of sacred pause to consider it makes you think, oh, it could be good, maybe put in your calendar some time to have that pleasurable experience. And notice what comes up for you. It's good, it's bad, it's resistance. I couldn't possibly, I'll never have the time. Whatever it is, just start to be curious about what might happen if we took the time in our lives and our human bodies to seek out the 1% or 2% of choice and pleasure that might be waiting for us. That's me. Thank you so much. I'm going to open it for questions.
Ah, Kai Cheng, thank you so much. Here's a question that I think a lot of people might be curious about. Isn't pleasure sometimes just a distraction or a way to avoid traumatic wounding? Don't people often use pleasure like in an addiction, uh, as an addiction to get away from important healing work?
Love this question. Yes, absolutely. Pleasure can tip us into the space of maybe we would call this like staying in the underworld to some extent. Very often we are using pleasure to get away. And there's actually, like, I want to hold, there's nothing morally wrong with that. This too is a survival strategy. Um, what's really challenging about pleasure that's distracting, that's taking away, is we often start to want something without really liking it. We might call this addiction or dependence. We start to notice that our dependence on this particular type of pleasure is taking us away from the person we want to be for ourselves and for others. And it starts to become a painful pleasure that's really not a pleasure at all. It starts to become like the hunger of a phantom inside of us that's consuming, and there's never enough. Pleasure that is trauma healing creates more capacity to experience pain and discomfort rather than less. It resources us and brings us closer into relationship. And often the pleasure that is trauma healing is also a little bit challenging. Like it's like, oh, I've got to be a little bit brave and take myself to this social event. Oh, I've got to be a little bit brave and take a break instead of working so much. This is my big one. I've got to be a little bit brave and take a break. Um, so we're really trying to practice mindful pleasure. If I was going to simplify it, we would be doing it mindfully, choicefully, and in right relationship, and getting support to make the discernment of which is which when we're getting really confused.
Hmm, thank you. Monica is asking, she says, it's really hard to focus on pleasure during daily life. I focus more on task completion rather than connecting with my body or nature. And I feel like I need a community for daily practice to change this lifetime of routines. What do you suggest?
Mm. I really, really appreciate this question. And I sort of think if anybody here finds it difficult to focus because of a task orientation, maybe send us an emoji, like send some love to all of the people who are task completers in this room. Like, oh my gosh, that's just kind of the function of the world we live in. So what I'm hearing is there's an embodied conditioning. That's probably not just about one's own habits, but it's about the world we live in and the demands we live in. That's like, do this, do this, do this. You're on deadline, do this. Lots of emojis coming in for that. And so it's really hard. Even when there is a moment, it's like the body can't shift. So I have two suggestions for this. One is sometimes active pleasure, so the more sympathetic dominant pleasure, is easier to get into than the parasympathetic dominant pleasure for the body that's really conditioned toward doing. And then it's like after we do the more active kind of pleasure, then because we're tired, it's easier to shift into the blissful state. So it's like maybe a jog or dancing or a little breath work, whatever feels pleasurable and brings up the nervous system, can help us then get out of the task orientation. And then after that, it's a little easier to drop into restful bliss. That's one suggestion. But the other suggestion is, oh, we do need help. And I actually think this is about the environment that we're in. Um, so recruiting one's friends to start a pleasure rebellion and like do something pleasurable for 1 hour a week together or half an hour a week together, I don't know, whatever it is very helpful because humans need the collective. We live in a society that shames pleasure and rest. And it's really, really helpful to be in the group that encourages pleasure and rest. And the pleasure rebellion, I think, is about acknowledging there has been an injustice here. And actually, all of us deserve pleasure.
All of us deserve pleasure. One more. Nicole says, to feel safe, I say no to everything. Any ideas for me? Any tips?
Oh, well, I just want to send a lot of love to this as well. It's also a very powerful strategy that we see a lot in the trauma healing world that I am a part of. So I first want to say my first tip is love the no. Bless the no. The no is sacred. The no that kept us safe. Sacred, sacred, sacred. So we really want to encourage and welcome and thank the conditioned tendency within ourselves to say, no, I don't want that, because it's powerful. Our no is as powerful and sacred as our yes. And often when we do that, actually, there's a bit of a softening that occurs. When we give ourselves permission to say no, it makes it easier to say yes. And then we sense the longing, the wanting to want that lives behind the defensive no. And then I would really take long, sacred pauses here. When we see something that we want to want, really take the pause. Really check in with the no, thank the no, bless the no, and then see if there's anything that the no might need to make more room for a yes. And maybe it's actually that the no just needs to hear, we'll stop if it turns bad. I'm allowed to change my mind. And this is really, really key. We get to experiment. We get to try things out. Comes back to choice. And really, really taking it slow and going little bits at a time is often helpful.
Mm, thank you, Kai Cheng. This has been a wonderful, excellent session. We're so grateful for you. Thank you to our audience. You'll find the replay in the TRF Somatic Library. Please respond to our surveys. They help us grow, integrate. We can't wait to see you next time. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you so much, everyone.